We went to the Giant. We went to the, she dropped her off. Like,
grocery shop.
yeah, the old Giant for manager specials. And took her to the senior center where she picked up something. Then took her over to what the heck it was. She was just the first time we like hung out together.
Wow.
In a long time.
Well, cool.
Wow.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's just kind of
Mhm.
life, changes so much what you do. It gets crazy with everything with the kid,
Mhm.
and even without the kid, just all these different things. So she goes, "It was really fun being with you." I said, "Yeah, it was fun being with you too." It's kind of like, wow, we used to do this all the time.
Mhm.
I wouldn't want to do it all the time anymore. I just shopping aside, like when you're first dating, you go out, you carry the bag, you're doing this, and what do you think of this? Oh, that's really nice. But why don't you go out with one of your girlfriends? They're much more suitable to this.
Mhm.
It was,
It's all about the relationship.
Yeah.
That's-
it is. And we needed to spend a little together time that wasn't, managing the kid or managing the house or trying to figure out what we're going to do next or putting up the decoration, taking out this or getting the box out of the attic or all the kind of stuff. We go, that's not how people are coming out. We got to vacuum. No, we just
Mhm.
went out and did fun things. So, yeah,
Good.
it's good.
All right, well, let's get started. Hello, Miss Molly. Welcome aboard.
Hello.
Good to have you.
Can you hear me?
house.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm going to keep it on mute.
Okay.
okay. Got Logan and Jeff here tonight.
Yep.
Yay.
Hey.
All right, so let's, if we can, there we go. Here, light our candle.
Hey, the joy candle's purple like the other ones. What's with that?
Yeah, well.
Oh, we're doing number 4.
Yeah, it's week 4.
Supposed to wait till Sunday?
Not here.
Not here. All right.
We're
All
a
right.
few days ahead here.
First you get the comment.
Yeah, I know. I'm
Yeah.
sorry I missed last
Get
week.
a preview,
I was on a job and I remembered it was Wednesday. And I remember when I went out to the job, I said, well, I should be done with this in time to get back and do the thing. 8 o'clock, I go, Wednesday.
It happens.
Yeah, it's just, that's one thing about this season. I mean, it seems like we're always busy in this area. Just everything's always nuts. But at Christmas time,
Right.
it gets
Yeah.
more nuts.
Yeah.
And then
Hey,
you-
Debbie.
Hey, Debbie.
Good,
Okay.
how are you?
Quite well.
I think that might be Dustin.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yes.
So yeah, it's
We are.
and if you're like me, I tend to be a single tracker. The only time I can multitask is if I'm working on a project. Like when we're working on a project and I know they got to let something dry, like glue has to dry or I got to change the oil, I got to drain, whatever. I can multitask all these things and seamlessly integrate them, knowing everything needs to be done at a certain time and have them all work.
Yeah.
But if it has anything to do with like, the daily activities of living,
Hey, Dustin.
forget it. Hey, Desta, how are you? Good.
Good.
Awesome.
Just getting started.
That's when I fall apart. I just can't eat. Christmas time. Christmas time is here.
Oh, pretty in here.
Yeah,
Very red.
it is. It is. Sue got these for the lunch. We've got a family in the village that wants to use the church for their Christmas Eve dinner. So they're gonna come after our
Oh,
service.
really?
Oh, cool.
and Have dinner in there. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what, they must have a big family then, huh?
Bigger than they anticipated. Yeah.
Ah, that's always a good
Yeah,
problem
it
to have.
kind of grew.
Who is it? Do you know?
I do, but I'm not gonna tell you.
Any
We'll
particular,
probably see them come.
any particular reason? You don't want me to crash it or something?
None of your business.
What are we not telling?
Who it is in the village that's having their family Christmas party?
Yeah.
He's afraid I'll crash it. Oh, hey, I
Oh,
was just
you told them
stopping
they
by.
could?
Oh,
Huh?
look at
Told
what
them
you-
they could?
Yeah.
based on that, I'm gonna crash it anyway.
Happen to be here at the same
Yeah.
time.
David told me that y'all was gonna be here and I
Uh.
thought I'd come and see what's going on. No, I'll try not to impugn you.
All right, thank you.
I think, so they're after our service, I guess?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, man.
uh,
Tis the season for runny noses. Da la 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 la.
it is indeed.
It's not, it's a big book of the blues.
I
Wait,
think I could have missed that.
wait, just right now, spirit.
All right, all right, all right, all right.
I'm on a roll here.
I'm trying to get on one, all right?
Yeah, this and.
All right. Sure.
You got that
Go
computer
ahead.
there, friend.
Well, I guess we better wait for Dustin.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
It's fun when the kids are all singing. I was telling the gang on Monday, I've been doing this ever since Ben was little at the elementary school. I get with them, pick a day to go at lunch time, and they have a piano there and thing, and I get all the kids singing.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah, I got them all yelling and hollering. Jingle bells, deck the halls, Santa Claus coming to town, Mr. Grinch. It's funny, every year it's different songs that they want to hear too. Last year, they really wanted to hear the Grinch singing that. This year, they're singing. I mean, tried to learn all the words of the Grinch. This time they want to hear Mariah Carey and Last Christmas, which, by the way,
Last Christmas.
that's, goodness, of all the songs I really could do without.
Least favorite song.
Yeah, and I had like 3 requests, and it was 2 boys that wanted it and 3 girls. And I was okay. I understand the girls kind of want that. You play Last Christmas. I was sure, I'll go ahead and see what I can. But the Mariah Carey thing was pretty big too.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's another one.
I don't think I've even heard it this year. I don't know what's wrong.
Nothing is
I
wrong.
haven't. Jacob probably has because he works retail.
Yeah, yeah,
The "Rocking Around the Christmas Tree" is the number 1 song right now for.
yeah.
Oh, is it that? You know what they did sing that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. It surpassed Mariah Carey's "All I Want for Christmas Is You" as the number 1 Christmas song this season.
That's amazing.
Wow, that's kind of good.
Well, I guess if you start playing Mariah, at the beginning of November, by now.
Everybody's sick of it.
All right,
Yeah.
we're done.
Yeah. Although
Okay.
that song has made her a very wealthy woman.
Oh yeah, yeah. That one song alone set for life.
All right, are we ready to get started?
We are ready.
Yeah,
All right, let's get started.
leave all this secular stuff in the gutter.
What's up, Jeff? We're gonna get started. All right, here we go. Creator God, guide us as we seek to better discern the profound mystery of incarnation. It is with awe and wonder that we affirm this mystery we can never fully comprehend. Guide us as together we seek to explore more deeply the gift of the Word made flesh. Amen.
Amen.
All right, I'm sorry.
No. You're absolutely, you were spot on. Sometimes I need damping
You
down.
take it so well.
You have to. I'm too.
All right, so what's your favorite underdog story and why?
You're talking about the episodes of the cartoon back.
No,
Oh.
no, that
Oh,
would be,
two of them,
that would be
okay.
with a capital U.
Wally Cox, the voice of it.
Yes.
Gosh,
Holy pure.
so we're talking real life.
Yeah, no. Yeah, movies, books,
Yeah.
cartoons, whatever.
There are a lot.
Underdog story.
Yeah,
I guess there's so many out there.
There are, and I can't think of a single one, but there's so many great stories of,
Like, even like Charlotte's Web.
yeah.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You know, where you have an animal that everybody hates or wants to throw off in the corner or something, and it comes up to being something useful. Oh, I just watched a movie, free one, The Dog That Saved Christmas.
oh, okay.
Oh.
yeah.
So there's that dog
Okay.
There we go.
that was an underdog. And some genres are like that, like fantasy,
Oh, sure,
science fiction.
Yep.
You always have an underdog.
the great
This saves the
stories.
day.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All of mine are sports ones. So the Invincible movie with the guy the Eagles signed off the street, that's a real
Oh.
story.
Oh, is
And
that
then he
the
like ends up
is that
making the team and doing
Mark,
well.
what's his name?
Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
that. That was good.
Um, Mighty Ducks is always a good one.
Mm,
What about Forrest Gump?
sure,
Yeah,
sure, absolutely. Well, you know, all the great stories.
Yeah,
Are,
and I know when I go home, I'm gonna go, why didn't I think,
Good.
why did, yeah.
yeah, I mean, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, all the nerdy stories, you
Oh,
know.
can it be a fiction thing, I
Yeah,
guess?
yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
Of course, you always root for the underdog when it comes to sports,
Mhm.
no matter
Yeah.
what one it is.
Yeah.
Football, baseball, basketball.
Did you ever see, what was the movie, Dodgeball with Vince Vaughn?
Oh yeah, that's good. That's
It was
funny.
called a true underdog story.
Yeah, there you go.
In
The
the,
average Joes.
yeah, in the original cut, they lose at the end, and that's
Oh.
it.
Well, I'm glad they
How
revamped
so?
that.
Yeah.
What about,
His thinking was it would be a true underdog story because underdogs really don't usually win. And so the last shot is,
I could,
the other guy hitting Joe with the ball. He's out. Game over. Cut to credits.
if fiction's okay,
I feel like it did in that way, but then his toe crossed the line and then
Yeah,
they kept it
well,
going.
they had to go back and film all that after
Oh, they
after
did?
they did some.
after they closed production?
Yeah, because I mean,
What?
they were doing screenings, test screenings,
Right.
and everyone hated it. It's like, you can't end it like that.
So then
So they went back
What
and
movie, Dan?
dodged.
Dodgeball.
Dodgeball. I never saw it, okay. How about Elf?
Oh,
I don't know, of course, it was just, I'm a Will Ferrell fan because I just think of him, and he just cracks me up, but you know,
yeah.
walking all the way down from North Pole, all the stuff he had to went through. And it just, you know, and in the end, you know, he wins the girl and convinces that, you know, Christmas is a good thing for everybody still, and eschews the commerciality of it, and brings back the reason, of course, you know, focused on the real Santa,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you're not Santa Claus. Shut up, Santa.
So what is it about underdog stories that we love?
Because we're all underdogs.
Yeah,
Relatable. Relatable.
yeah.
We want to win sometimes.
We do.
Right.
We have that desire to struggle against the odds.
It seems like with most underdog stories, they're not necessarily struggling against evil, but they're struggling against powers that are overwhelming and not necessarily geared toward a common good.
Yeah.
So when the common man or woman, you know, rises up and is able to say, wait a minute, we're not going to do what everyone else is doing and do it this way. We're going to do the right thing here.
Right.
That's how I look at it.
Rosa Parks.
Your
Yeah,
odds may
yeah.
not be in your favor.
Yeah, right. Yeah. All right, changing tacks a little bit. Yes, Molly.
I think maybe like with I was thinking of Neville Longbottom as an underdog in the Harry
Oh,
Potter
yeah.
stories, and I think maybe why we like those is they find unexpected heroes where people were overlooking them, or the person who is the underdog finds something within themselves.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. The unexpected victory. Yeah. The unexpected value.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the person themselves finds that they've got things inside them they didn't know they had.
Yeah. Yeah. The hero's story.
Good point.
Yeah. Okay. Changing direction a little bit. Have you ever moved into a new neighborhood? What was that like? And what was challenging about it? And what was rewarding about it?
Someone else needs to go first. I'm always talking. Right, David?
I've moved to several neighborhoods.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go. When we moved in 28 years ago here, Laura and I,
Mhm.
this was, we had been looking around thinking, we really liked the history of Waterford. We volunteered for a few things and kind of met some of the people and said, this kind of what we're doing. And mind you, we're not married at this point, and we had not planned to start shacking up together, but we really kind of thought we'd be here. So we started putting offers on us. Finally got one. And when we actually got the house and they said yes, we kind of almost went, wow, this is really happening. And then finally we moved in. And so we started going out. Now this is September, and then the snows came along. So we started meeting people. And I would say nothing was overly challenging about it. And what was nice is just, when you move into any new place, meeting the different personalities, I think was the most, we had to kind of figure out, who's jovial, who's more serious, not catering to Jeff Bean's sense of humor, who's got, who wants to do like, give me woman things with Laura that I'd be, and so that kind of, and then,
Yeah.
then you settle in, I'm going over to Canada, get that, get it. I'm gonna go over to this, we're gonna work on Woodsill. I mean, see you later. Yeah, but,
Right.
you have to find a new rhythm when you move into a new place,
Yeah.
I think.
Right. When we first moved to the neighborhood that we lived in for 10 years out in Leesburg, everything I knew was being in the country and everything. So just little things like common courtesy, like you can't go out and cut the grass at 8 a.m. on a Saturday. People are like sleeping and like the weed eaters buzzing and random little things like that.
Yeah.
I was like, well, this is different.
Yeah.
Gotta get used to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm raring to go. I want to cut the grass and move on with my day. But I guess I should wait until.
At least
Stop
9.
cracking up, people trying to sleep.
You guys were there 10 years? That doesn't seem
Yeah,
possible.
we were in that house for 10 years. Yeah.
Wow.
I've had
Yeah.
varied experiences.
Mhm.
Moved several different places. One I remember when I was young, we moved from one town off to another. So I'm here in a new school, a new kids, all that sort of stuff. And one of them comes up with about 4 other ones, says, "Are you Catholic?" I said, "Well, in this part of the town, there's a lot of Catholic." I said,
Yeah.
"No." And then they said, "Well, do you believe in God the Father, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit?" And I said, "Yes." And the person goes, "She's okay." That's, you're, I was
Wow.
7, 8 years old.
I was gonna say, age range, wow.
That was my induction into the neighborhood.
Wow.
Wow. Yes, ooh.
Interesting, Justin.
They were gonna give you some good news otherwise.
Yeah, did they surround you in kind of a semicircle?
Well, kind of, yeah.
Hey.
I guess it kind of felt like that, but
Yeah.
you're just one person, Semicircle could be anyway.
Yeah, like this.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Debbie, anything special?
My first experience of moving into new neighborhoods actually when I went to festival in Blacksburg, and I went from living on the farm to 500 square foot apartment building. That was interesting. Unfortunately, most of the partying undergrads lived there.
Oh,
So
boy.
the guy that lived above me used to climb up. I lived on the lower level, so he would pop himself off my light fixtures to get onto his balcony to get into
Golly.
his house. So we'd wake up on any given morning. The dogs had been throwing a fit, and there's all the glass shards there. And, that was fun.
That's right.
Sometimes people walked into your apartment thinking it was theirs. And then one morning the police showed up insisting at 2 a.m. that I had called 911 when in fact I had not. So there were some challenges there.
Wow.
What was good about it? I had one neighbor that became my friend, so that was good, I guess. Other than that, not much.
Yeah.
But I don't like to meet new people, as you may or may not have discovered, so I don't like moving into new neighborhoods.
Mhm.
So that's challenging.
Yeah, yeah, I hear that. All right. Well, we're going to be talking about the Gospel of John tonight. And those questions will actually be pertinent as we make our way through here. So as we have been doing, let's remind ourselves of some of the things that we talked about this summer about John's Gospel. Yeah, on the road trip. So John is the last of the four Gospels that we have in the Bible to have been written, we believe. So think it's late in the first century, maybe 95, 100 AD even. So good long while. So that's like 70 years after Jesus' death and resurrection, plus or minus a few. As with them all, anonymous, but it is traditionally John the Apostle, although some people think it was Mary Magdalene.
She wouldn't have still been around then at that age, though.
I don't know, might have been. She'd
Well,
be really, really old.
yeah.
But so would John.
Okay, all right, well, yeah.
So,
Their calendar year was different too.
well, yeah, but still, you know, as we reckon it, it would be about that. So the audience was the church in Ephesus, and as we'll see down the list a little bit here, they actually referred to themselves as Christians, which was new and different. That name was applied first to the believers in Antioch, but in Ephesus they said, "Yeah, we'll be called Christians, sure, yeah." It was originally more of an insult, but they claimed it. Alexander John Shaya talks about John as resting in the garden. I'm not going to spend too much time with Alexander John tonight. So a little bit about Ephesus, just to remind ourselves, it was a congregation founded by Paul about 50 years ahead of the writing of this gospel. Lots of folks, apparently, according to tradition anyway, lots of the stars of the early church had spent some time in Ephesus, including John, Mary Magdalene, and Mary, the mother of Jesus. As I said, first to identify as Christians, but it was a diverse group of Jews and Gentiles together, we think. And this would have been, again, well after now. So if Matthew was written around 70 and then Luke was around 85, so another 15 years and we get to John's gospel. 15 years they've been out on their own, not really being Jewish per se, but a mix of Jews and Gentiles.
Now, Ephesus was another one of those trading towns, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a strategic port town in what we know as Turkey. I dropped that. I had another slide about all the geography of it, but I dropped that out for tonight. But yeah, it's near modern Selçuk in Turkey.
Well, it kind of makes sense that you would have a diverse congregation.
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely a crossroads. There was a lot of stuff going on. In terms of the content of the book, we have the poetic prologue, which we're going to take a look at actually, and lots of what could be called mystical content. There's a lot of stuff that just, you know, it's very metaphorical, symbolic language. Not nothing, but there's a lot that is just not quite straightforward. You have to think about, what is he talking about?
So why do people recommend reading John first to people who are not Christians?
That's a great question. I've wondered that myself.
Okay.
Because it is, there's some really, really hard stuff in John's gospel.
Well, he's a non-synoptic, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a whole different flow to the story. Um, some of the same stories, but told very differently. But most of them are independent material. It's of the four, it's the easiest to read in Greek. The Greek is pretty basic. But the concepts are deep and rich and multi-layered. But the vocabulary is pretty straightforward. So when we studied Greek in seminary, you start with John because it's easy.
Oh,
So I don't know if that carries over and people just think, well, I started with John, you should start with John.
there you go.
Or because it has John 3:16 in it. So read that.
No.
But it's just a really symbolic book. We've got these various very long conversations that happen, longer than the synoptics have of Jesus talking with anybody. Talking with the first disciples, Nicodemus comes by night, the Samaritan woman at the well, the man born blind, huge chapter, a whole chapter, and very long discussion with Pontius Pilate in John's gospel, where in the others it's like 1 or 2 sentences. So really taking the time to explore some things. A bunch of I am sayings where Jesus says, compares himself to stuff. I am the light of the world. I am the bread of life. I am the vine. I am the good shepherd. I'm the gate. All those things. Bunch of miracles, which in the synoptics, the gospels or the miracles tend to be things like healings and casting out demons. There's a lot of that, and a very few really big things like feeding of multitude, walking on water, stuff like that. John has relatively few healings, but a bunch of other stuff, and talks about them in different ways. And they mention that in the book that in John, these are clear signs of Jesus' power. They're not just, they're done almost primarily to show off who he is, rather than to produce some benefit for the people that he's doing it for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So like instead of healing lepers, and that's good for them, but then he says, don't tell anyone.
Right, Jesus was
Right.
very, just got the
Yeah.
part of Matthew on my read through, and a lot of healings, he didn't want everyone
Yeah,
he didn't want the healed talking about it.
yeah,
Now, here's the thing, he's Jesus, he must have known they were gonna,
yeah, well.
let's say sternly, and then they go off and
Sternly
say,
said, don't tell anybody. who
Yeah,
this
it's
came
like-
from, right?
Psychology.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it might have been
Well,
that, yeah. Or, just disobedient people who told anyway.
Yeah.
Oh,
So it seems like John is trying to answer the question of who is Jesus and
mm,
why am I worshiping him?
yeah, exactly.
And he's telling him because of this.
Yes,
yes,
yeah. And so why is he worthy of worship?
Right.
Well, because he can do all this stuff, which means that he's something, he's somebody. Right? Big themes, light versus darkness and union versus tribe. So things that are on God's side and Jesus' side, and life and healing and goodness is light, misunderstanding. It's almost that darkness reflects a misunderstanding of who Jesus is and what he's all about. So Nicodemus comes to see him at night, and Jesus says, you must be born again. He said, I have no idea what you're saying. And he never really gets it at that point. By the end of the book, he shows up twice more, Nicodemus does, and he begins to understand eventually. But right in that conversation, he has no idea what's going on. Next chapter is the woman at the well, and he has this long conversation with her, and she's like, this must be the Messiah. And it happens at noon.
Right.
Right, so-
Right for the day.
Yeah, yeah. So light and darkness, very closely associated with how do you understand Jesus. Union versus tribe is the teachings of Jesus are about union. Let's do this together. I'm in you and you're in me and I'm in God and God's in me. Goo 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 choo. And that versus well, the scribes and the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and they don't want to have anything to do with anybody else, and that sort of thing. And the disciples, they don't want to have anything to do with all those other, so there's that human movement toward tribe, and Jesus is like, nah, that's not how this is supposed to work. So, we go, wow, gee, okay. All right, so John 1:14, this is the prologue. So somebody want to read some of this?
In the beginning, the Word already existed. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He existed in the beginning with God. God created everything through him. Nothing was created except through him. The Word gave life to everything that was created, and his life brought light to everyone. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it.
Somebody else pick up.
God sent a man, John the Baptist, to tell about the light, so that everyone might believe because of his testimony. John himself was not the light. He was simply a witness to tell about the light. The one who is the true light, who gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He came into the very world he created, but the world didn't recognize him. He came to his own people, and even they rejected him. But to all who believed him and accepted him, he gave the right to become children of God. They are reborn, not with a physical birth resulting from human passion or plan, but a birth that comes from God.
So the Word became human and made his home among us. He was full of unfailing love and faithfulness, and we have seen his glory, the glory of the Father's one and only Son.
Well, there we go. So all those themes are right in there, right?
Mhm.
Light and darkness and understanding and misunderstanding and union and glory. And this is how John's gospel begins. And so there's no birth narrative. There's no angels. There's no shepherds. There's no manger. There's none of that. And it goes from here into John the Baptist.
He's kind of
ministry.
telling where Jesus originated from, and Jesus always was. Jesus was
Yeah.
part of the whole thing. I guess that's what he's trying to get to.
Exactly.
So never mind the fact that he had to incarnate through a virgin, BFD. The fact of the matter is he's here now, and this is what he's going to do.
Yeah. And so here we are. There's Earth. The first time anybody got a picture like this, it was kind of transformational. And nobody had seen the whole globe of the Earth floating in the black hole.
They did that from one of the first Apollo missions. didn't they?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And they were far enough away to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Apollo 8. This one was taken much later, actually. But on Apollo 8, which was 1968.
It's amazing, the blue planet. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, it's spectacular. They took a couple of pictures on the way out, but even then it didn't really register for them because they were so busy. And it wasn't until they were coming around the backside of the moon, further than any humans had ever been from the planet. And as they came around the other side, here comes the Earth.
Earthrise.
Earthrise. And oh, man, get the camera. They'd never even thought about the possibility of seeing this. And it's, wow, it's the Earth. And they even said, I forget which one of them said, we went all the way to the moon and we discovered the Earth.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
So now we've had more opportunities to do this, and this is from a satellite, I think, that regularly takes whole globe pictures.
Yeah.
But it's sort of a God's eye view of the Earth. And the first time people saw this, and when they saw that Earthrise picture too, it just changed how they understood the planet. So after, as a result of the Apollo project, there was the environmental movement really took off. It's like, look at this thing, look how beautiful it is. Look at all the nothing around it. We better take care of this thing.
It's one of the most interesting of the people when William Shatner,
Yeah,
Captain
yeah.
Kirk, who's, he's been flying around in starships forever and a day on TV. And apparently it was quite an experience for him
Oh,
to
yeah.
actually see it. And he wrote about that too. So
Yeah.
this is a guy who's, you would
Right.
think,
I saw that SpaceX thing,
yes,
and when he came down, that's all he could talk about was how
yes,
fragile
Yeah.
the Earth seemed
Yeah.
out there, and he thought in the movies, like there were stars all around. and
Right.
everything,
yeah.
And all he could see was darkness, just dark.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
you have it
'cause-
right there.
Yeah. I mean, if you're up there, I think, once your eyes adjust, you can see stars.
Sure, yeah, but
And lots
the
of
sunlight reflecting off the Earth.
Yeah, it's blindingly bright when you're in orbit. So it's hard to see the stars, but and for photographs, there's contrast. It just blows it up. So anyway, it was a transforming experience of seeing the thing for the first time, basically, and that's kind of like the Gospel of John. So John's house is something very different from what we've been looking at.
Now, that is not a Waterford house.
No, this is not a Waterford house. Hey, Ginger, how are you?
Hey,
Good.
Ginger.
Downstairs, I believe. Yeah, yep.
Have this to deliver to her.
Oh, very good.
All right.
How's everybody doing? I didn't mean to disrupt.
Doing well.
Not at
No
all.
problem.
You're welcome to join if you'd
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Happy to see
Now
you.
I've gotta get back home and see if Dad's ate his supper.
Yeah.
Good to see you. That's an amazing,
A lot of light can come.
Yes. So this is, we did Mark's little shack,
yeah.
and we did Matthew's Victorian
Right.
with all the family pictures.
Oh, it's
Luke's-
Luke's. I missed that last.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, you played it
Uh,
on the Weaver's Cottage.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
On Sunday.
So the very practical house with,
Yeah.
for Luke, and here's John. So this is in the same vein as what they come up with in the book. This is in the Holland Hills neighborhood in Fairfax. I think it's Alexandria.
Good.
Designed in the late 40s or early 50s.
Is it Frank Lloyd Wright?
No, it's Charles M. Goodman.
Okay, so I was gonna say, he's obviously modernist, but
Yes. So there's a whole neighborhood of houses that look like this there.
wow.
And they are, the lines are all very clean, Bauhaus furniture inside, and lots of curvy things inside, like in the bathrooms, everything is very round, which is
Right.
interesting, but again, very clean lines. Lots of glass. None of the houses are parallel to the streets.
Now they're all,
they're facing they're facing the light. They're facing the sun.
that's kind of
and-
smart. Actually.
And they did their best to build them, to build the whole neighborhood around the existing nature that was there.
Hmm.
So they didn't level anything, they dug put them in the sides of the hills, and they followed the streams, for the roads and all that sort of thing. Because what he was trying to do was create a space that gave you the experience of both house, home, and nature in a way that you could appreciate both. And so it was a pretty radical departure from the way people had done houses before.
Yeah, when you're
As-
comparing Georgian, pretty much loop kind of
Yeah.
structures to this.
About the same time, you would have rising architecturally a lot of ranch houses, which you see everywhere here in which I live. The one story log house.
Ground floor, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's pretty closed in, but it's a practical house. This is not a practical.
No
This is a design.
statement.
And that's very much in keeping with how John's gospel works. It's a completely different way of thinking about it, and we'll get to that. So, what would John's house look like for Christmas? Well, John has this sense of the primordial dark. He kind of mentions that. Then we have the darkness. And so here's our house sitting in the middle of the dark. But he also has a sense of the cosmic scope of Christ. And so throw in a little of the creation back there. And of course, the key component to John's decorations at Christmas is he really doesn't need them because the whole house is filled with light.
It's good.
And so that's what it's like. He doesn't bother with the birth narrative or anything like that. It's just in the beginning, the Word already existed, and it brought light into the world, and the darkness cannot overcome it. Yes, Molly.
This looks like an episode of The X-Files.
Thanks. Not what I was going for.
I like it.
Yeah, well, I like the X-Files too, but not what I was going for. So anyway, we have this cosmic background and a house full of light. That's how John presents Christmas. What do you all think? Besides the X-Files. She's not wrong, but
It's a lot different than what we normally think of as Christmas.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm with Dust on that.
yeah.
So I guess it fits perfectly with John.
Good visual matches.
Yeah.
It's already there, so you don't have to go looking for anything else.
Yeah, yeah. And you don't need anything artificial. It's just there. All right, and if we're doing wreaths, John's wreaths are just full, full and rich. So, let's see. So where does the gospel begin? For Mark, it begins with baptism and John's ministry. For Matthew, he's got the genealogy, it goes back to Abraham. For Luke, it begins with not John, but John's parents, the annunciation to the couple without the child. And for John, it begins in the beginning.
Once upon a time.
Yeah, yeah. The phrase in the beginning that appears there of course, is also the beginning of the Torah. So, in the first century, the Jewish folks throughout the Mediterranean would be using a Greek translation of the Torah. And so it's the same words, in arche, in the beginning. So, and that's not by mistake. Going with our television metaphors, last week was Who's the Boss? This week is Quantum Leap. Do you know the show Quantum
No.
Leap?
I do, it's funny.
No,
I don't.
you were
know
just a
something,
kid. You were just a kid when that was on.
There you go.
Yeah,
But it's funny.
It was like a time warp, a time.
Time
machine,
travel.
Time travel thing, yeah.
Gotcha.
Scott Bakula or somebody was in that one.
yeah, Scott Bakula.
Starred Troy McClure, right? One of the B actor that.
No, no.
That's the Simpsons character I'm thinking of.
Thank you.
I do
You
know.
were
it.
thinking of?
I think so.
No,
He did a bunch of these old little sci-fi thingies. He was a regular,
yeah.
whatever.
Who was it that played Al? Well,
Al in Home Improvement?
no, in Quantum Leap.
Yeah, hang on just a minute.
Stockdale.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Oh, I know who you're talking.
so in the show Quantum Leap, Dr. Sam Beckett comes up with how to do time travel and Project
Dean Stockton.
Dean Stockton. That's it. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Stockwell.
Whatever.
Thanks, Paul.
You gotta show pictures now.
Anyway, the way that he ends up traveling in time is that he leaps into somebody else's body
Oh,
and or takes their place in space and time. They end up in his body back in the lab.
oh, good golly. Wondering
Um,
what the heck's going on.
and he,
Cannot figure out how your brain made this leap to this in time.
yeah.
Because it's so different.
So
I never
the
saw it.
premise of the show then, as it unfolds, he doesn't really, he ends up with this, they refer to it as Swiss cheese memory. He can't really remember who he is or his life, and it's mixed up with the life of the person he's leaped into. And so Al is a guy that from his lab who he can see through magic and the magic technology. And he ends up having to fix things that happened in the person's life. And he changes history just a little bit. And then he leaps into the next adventure, right? So he's taking part in someone else's life and setting right what once went wrong.
Well, depending on who you're leaping into, that could be a real challenge.
Oh, great. It's a great series.
And he
It's
did females
really good.
and males.
He did.
Oh, really? He had to be a woman sometimes?
Yeah, he even leaped into a chimp once.
Yeah.
No, yeah. What was
so,
wrong with the gym?
It was in the early days of the space program when they were using chimps as test subjects.
Good golly.
So yeah, it was.
Do you remember the episode with Kennedy's assassination?
Oh right, yeah. He leaped into a
He leaped into a Secret Service agent, the body of a Secret Service agent, and he thought that he was there to stop Lee Harvey Oswald from shooting Kennedy. And it all happens as it happened anyway. And he's in the hospital and he's just, kicking himself. Oh, if only, if only, if only. And Al says, no, in the original history, she died too. And he points over at Jackie.
Oh man.
Remember that one?
No, I didn't remember. I thought he ended up as Oswald at one point. Doesn't matter. Let's move on. We could you can go down that rabbit hole for quite a while. Thank you though for that. So some of the things that come together in John's Christmas, the light of creation is present in all life. So it says right there, the light was the life of all people. And then that line, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness, the way in this translation that we have, it said the darkness cannot extinguish it. But it's a word that has this very broad field of meaning. It's grasp, apprehend, master, comprehend, overtake. So the darkness can't win, but the darkness also doesn't understand the light.
Well, darkness is the absence of light. I mean,
Well, yeah,
everything would be dark without light.
that's true.
You could put that in a very, very dark place. It still would be a light.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's good reason to believe that John intended to use a very broad word there that has multiple meanings, because he loves to do that, or she, if it were Mary. So the darkness can't grasp it, the darkness can't master it, the darkness can't understand it. And we see that happening over and over again, as we said, that people just don't understand what's going on with this light. And so they behave in erratic ways that are not in keeping with what God intends. But those who do understand get to become children of God. So in the book, they mentioned this, and this is a paraphrase from Irenaeus, who was one of the early church fathers. He was writing in the 2nd century, so 150. So some generation after John. But it says, God became like us, so we can become like God. Or so that's really critical, I think, and very central to John's gospel, is this idea that as Jesus is, we can be as well. And he says, you know, I'm one with the Father. I'm one with you. You're one with me. Therefore, mathematically, you also can have the same relationship with God that I have.
That seems to be the constant message. You know, I mean, God wants us to accept him, be with him, and he gives us a choice that is true love as we, you know, strive for atonement, as opposed to, you know, robotically commanded, like, you know, the angels or something, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. So all the things that Jesus does, we can do. That's the message in John. It doesn't show up right in the beginning, but it does show up explicitly in the end of the gospel. You're going to do greater things than this. And the relationship, you know, we say Jesus is the Son of God. What does it say there? He gave the ability to become the children of God. Right? So we don't play that, though, right? We say, oh, we're miserable sinners and we're not worthy and we'll never be like Jesus. Well, that's not what the gospel says.
Right.
In some ways, it's a cop-out for us, so we don't have to rise to the occasion of being the image of God that we were created.
Lower the standard.
Yeah, yeah. So Christmas at John's house is challenging, I think, but full of potential, full of possibility.
It seems that John is more about concept about, it's not about things,
Mhm.
but more about abilities, like you can love your neighbor
Yeah,
in so many different ways. It just seems he is approaching it differently than,
oh, yeah,
you know,
yeah,
things, you know, change water and or wine, yeah, water into wine.
right, yeah,
But
yeah,
It's about facts. What do you do with that?
yes,
Instead of, this happened, this happened. What
right,
does that mean to you?
yeah. And even, okay, your sins are forgiven. Now what?
yeah, yeah.
Is that the end? Am I good now? Do I have, or is there something that's supposed to happen because of that?
I think that when you're in that state, you're not thinking about, I mean, it just becomes automatic.
Yeah.
It just becomes automatic that you accept people as they are. You try to pull them along the best way that they can be.
Yeah.
I don't think it's something where you sit there, oh, I made another mark today. Oh, I did this today. Oh, I talked to somebody, you know, it's just
Right.
not that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't think this is, I don't think it's like that.
No, I think that's a good point, actually.
Yeah. So, I like this wreath because it's full of light.
Yeah.
I thought that would be something that John would put up. So, as with the other gospels, John acknowledges that the Christmas event was not 100% effective.
Well, he was born and had to be born in order to do what he did the rest of the time, but
Well, yeah.
you know, the big thing is his death and resurrection, obviously,
Oh, yeah.
if he had just, checked out and never come back, anything like that, we'd say, yeah, he was great, wonderful prophet, did a lot of really cool things, but,
Yeah.
to be the Son of God and to have, found it become the central, object of our religion and belief system, he had to go through what he went through.
Well, yeah.
It's hard to imagine, but I mean, as you ponder it, you understand why he had to go through all that, why he had to suffer and die in that horrible manner
Mhm.
to then be resurrected and then be seen by all those people. It's like, okay, this ain't no poser. This is real. This is what God has in mind for us,
Mhm.
minus hopefully the torturous death, but we're going to die a physical death. And where do we go from there? I think that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
And maybe John is focusing more on that. That's what I was saying. It's not so much the incarnation isn't so big, the big thing, as it is, look at where this guy came from spiritually, his soul, the force that he was. Yeah, he incarnated, he did all these things, but look at what he did and look what he's taught us and shown us.
Mhm.
And it says the truth, the life, and the way. Oh yeah, undeniably.
Yeah,
And it would have been deniable had he not gone through with that.
right.
That's how I look at it.
So what I'm referring to here is it not being 100% effective is that bit in the prologue where it says he came to the world that he created and the world didn't recognize him. He came to his own people and they rejected.
Well, didn't he say in what part of the when he went back to his own hometown,
Yeah.
the toughest, the place you'll have the biggest problem is where you came from.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
Jesus himself said that.
Yep.
Okay. So John's echoing that.
yeah. And so John just takes that and writes it big, not just Nazareth, but the planet, right? The whole species. Tough crowd, I tell you.
Yeah, honestly,
Right?
you think about it.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's amazing what Jesus did in 3 years. I find that difficult to see a person today being able to do.
Yeah.
I mean, even TV evangelists don't do it. You know?
How right
There-
you are.
There's a reason for that.
God wanted me to have that gold plated sink in the air conditioned doghouse and the caddy.
Yeah.
And the Learjet.
Yeah. So even though there are those who don't get it, who reject him, for those who do, it is a transformational event. It changes the way that you think about the world. Like the architecture of that house was a radical departure from what a house is. Like the picture of seeing the earth created a radical different understanding of our home planet. And the same thing is true here. Is to receive Jesus Christ as the Son of God produces a radically different understanding of what it means to be human. And that is an ongoing process.
Mm-hmm.
In that he's saying that we can all be children of God.
Yeah.
Whereas the other gospels didn't state that really.
Right. Right. So, and there's I got something in here about that. I mentioned it in here. Yeah, okay. Changing tack a little bit, there's another section in here called One Last Stop, and it's about the prophet Isaiah. So they talk about Isaiah as the fifth gospel with all of its prophecies about
Well, he was the most,
Christ.
Isaiah was like the biggest of the big guy. Probably, I mean, he's the one that pretty much told everything 700 years before it all happened, right? I mean,
Five, but yeah.
Yeah.
5 or 6, yeah. So the book of Isaiah is actually 3 sections. There's the before the fall of Jerusalem, during the exile, and after they got back. So it covers about 140 years. So might not have been all Isaiah, one guy doing the writing there. It was probably 3 different people, but because of the consistency of the message and however that all got put together, it got glommed into one book, right? But it is consistent throughout in saying that God is at work doing stuff to restore creation, basically. And so there's the predictions of the Messiah's birth, the Messiah's ministry, the Messiah's suffering, the Messiah's restoration. It doesn't go specifically to resurrection per se, but there are things that are close and point toward resurrection. And the effect that that will have on the world, the restoration of everything, basically. So, the peaceable kingdom is a result of the Messiah, where the lion lies down with the lamb. All those things. So all of that gets tied into all of the gospel stories. Okay, so there's me talking all this stuff. So the author, both author and architect in the book, refer to John's house as being very unique, and we've seen sort of the architecture of it and all. What do you think makes it different?
The Book of John?
Yeah. Or any of the stuff that we've been, however you want to chunk it up. The book, the house, the Christmas.
I would just say what I said before. He's talking about where Jesus comes from, where Jesus went to, what he did while he was here, and how we're all involved in that. To me, that's what is different than the synoptic gospel, isn't it? They focus more on. I mean, they all ended up with the resurrection, but it's kind of like they tell his life story and stop there and say, moving forward, this is what you got to do. John's telling, no, there was something before the beginning. Here's what happened in the middle, but more importantly, where are we all going? That's what I think makes it different.
Okay.
I think that's the, where do you go?
Right. Where do you go from here?
Logan, you looked on the verge of speech a minute ago.
I can't remember. Um, it wasn't not like object based, it was big picture ideas, full, but I like now I understand that the read being full, just full of big things to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So John's gospel begins literally and figuratively in the beginning. What do you think of when you hear that phrase? In the beginning.
Well, I think it depends on the context. When I read it in the Bible, it was like, this is how creation started.
Mhm.
It was amazing. When I see it there, I think of once upon a time.
Yeah.
So the context is just, I mean, to me in the Bible, it's just so much different because it's trying to say that the world was created. There were parts that worked together to make it be created.
Mhm.
It was all part of God. So the word was part of God.
Yeah.
Wisdom was
Yeah.
the whole thing. At least that's how I see it.
Mhm.
Yeah, the picture of the earth is interesting. Just seeing that, all of its beauty, the fact that everything that we are and everything we have and everything that
Mhm.
is because of God,
Yeah.
and that we were made in that image. We don't always abide by that.
Oh, that's so free.
You take that the image of the earth for granted because we all grew up seeing the globe or whatever, but I can't imagine what it was like for them to see that for the first time.
Yeah.
I was reading something in a book I was just reading, and it talked about people centuries before, they were used to just their little area, their little
Yeah.
city or their little town. And the earth kind of probably seemed kind of flat or finite.
Mhm.
It didn't seem like a
Wow.
big
Yeah.
globe.
Yeah.
And for them to see something
Yeah.
like the satellite or whatever,
Oh, gee,
you
yeah.
know, the Apollo picture would have just, I think, blown their mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, what does John tell us was in the beginning with God?
Word.
If God moved into your neighborhood, what might God experience of the human condition?
You'd probably wonder what the heck he created us for and what the heck we've done with all the good gifts he's given to us and why are we doing what we're doing. But
Mm.
then again, you know, he's eternal. I think he must have known what he's getting into for the most part. You know, the fact that, you know, we talk about God being eternal, but we also know that he has changed his mind in
Mhm.
several instances. And I think if I always go back to this, I always say, if in fact we have free will, it's not predestination and it's all we're deciding what we do as we go along. Well, then, you know, yes, he's God. He could know everything, but I can imagine he wouldn't really want to know everything. I think he'd probably want to say, okay, I'm giving these people free will. I want them to love me of their own free will. And that's why I do that. Now, when they screw up or when they do this, when they do that, how do I respond to that? And I think that's what would be the interesting thing to see how God actually does view us. We know he loves us.
Mhm.
We also know that before he really loved us a whole lot, there's a lot of smiting and smoting and a lot of, you know, Noah's flood when he was PO'd about the giants and the Nephilim and all that. I mean, you know, he obviously has had to figure some things out as he's gone along to the way I read in the Bible.
Mhm.
So, but I think, you know, but in sending Christ to give us forgiveness and atonement, I think at this stage, if he moved into our neighborhood, he'd probably just kind of look and say, okay, there's, people that are doing right, that are doing good, that are moving forward, that are growing. There are people that are backsliding, and people that are just kind of existing in the lukewarm condition. That's my take on
I think you would see a lot of separate individual kind of existences
Mm-hmm.
Or tribe
That-
and union.
that sometimes
Yeah.
come together in different, I mean, when I look at my neighborhood, I mean, people are driving in and out. It's very rare anybody stays outside long enough to talk, occasionally, but
Wow.
it's like work, home, and then if you, an activity or something.
That's so different than here, just as they like to say, it's been the thing in Waterford. They say, if you need to walk from one end of Waterford to the other, it's maybe, I don't know, from one end down here all the way up there, maybe 5/8, 3/4 of a mile. And if it's a rainy Sunday afternoon late, or if it's in the evening, something, it's maybe a 10-minute walk. But if it's any kind of daytime or a weekend, I think it's 2 hours, because everyone around here just loves to talk. I mean, they'll stop for no reason, which I love. I think it's a great
Really?
thing. Yeah, I know it seems very unlike me being the sheltered, shy recluse that I am,
Yeah.
but oh yeah, I'm constantly admonished by Laura. Go to the post office, get the letters. Don't talk to anybody. Do you know me? You need to be back by it. But that's interesting, because I've seen, and I think that's the case in a lot of the McMansionized neighborhoods where the
Mhm.
houses are on the big lots. So you can't just like go over the fence, or you can't just, that's one thing I really like about the village. And that was very important to Laura and I. We looked at a lot of different places in around Loudon and Fauquier. We wanted to be sure, even though we were very gravitated toward it, we wanted to be sure that we're considering, we knew we didn't want to be out in Alexandria and Fairfax anymore, but did we want to be more out and alone, or do we want to be more? We realized, no, we're townies, we live for that. So,
Okay.
so I think what Desta says, boy, it's just amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah, different neighborhoods, depending on how the proximity of each, you're gonna have different
Yeah.
things. One thing I did find, and you probably,
We're mowing our grass.
Yeah, Molly said, God would want to know why we are mowing the grass.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
Why are you cutting that? What are you doing with that once you
Because
cut
you
it?
get vermin if they're too tall.
Cut it and you take all the cuttings, and what do you do with that?
Yeah, and throw it out.
Throw it into the dump. Oh. Oh. What are they doing now? They're raking leaves. What do they do with those? They throw those out too.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what's that around the bottom of the trees? Well, they cut down other trees and grind them up and put them there. But that's where the leaves go.
And
Sorry.
what's the purpose? The purpose is merely to decorate and make the place look nice.
Yeah.
Think about
Wait,
it.
wait a minute, what are they doing now? They're fertilizing the grass to make it grow, so they can cut
So they
it?
can- yeah.
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 My old neighbor Joel, it was funny. Sherry Sad's husband, he was spending the money. It was great because this is how this conversation came out. It's very stupid.
I'm gonna hold you, because
Okay.
I've gotten us off track and
Okay.
it's getting late.
He fertilized,
So-
I'd grab his grass for the mulch, for the compost.
Yeah,
And he finally questioned, why do I spend money to fertilize it? So I can spend money to have it cut, so I can give it to you.
Yeah.
There you go.
yep, that's it. That's it. All right, so what experiences might God have in other neighborhoods?
Well, if he's in Jeff's neighborhood, he's gonna be talking a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd never get from one end to the other.
Yeah.
That's true.
I was thinking about this, some neighborhoods, you'd probably find a lot of loneliness, which might be, that McMansion.
Yeah.
Uh,
If you're in your own enclave and you never go out, yeah.
Right.
It's,
yeah, and
Others are more diverse.
others are more diverse. There's a lot of suffering in a lot of neighborhoods. Depending on the neighborhood.
Well, true. I wasn't thinking about other neighborhoods, like inner city, nothing but buildings and concrete.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
if you do have any ground, it's all beaten down by little feet and everything,
Mhm.
so it doesn't grow anything.
Mhm.
well, and it's funny too, because I've seen this too in my own experience, going in and doing service work and repair work. And I'll go into a neighborhood like it's not mansions, but rather, I mean, they usually big houses, but they're, they build them right next to each other. And I'll go in, I'll talk to the people and go in there and like, one of my favorite examples, guy next door to a Mustang or a car someone's interested in. I say, I see your neighbor's got the thing. And I go, yeah, that's his car. He's going to do this thing. Do you know anything about, anything? And I never forget the one who said, well, we don't really know those people too well. I said, how long
Right
do they live
next
here?
door.
Yeah.
He said,
Yeah.
we've been here many years, but we just haven't really ever connected.
Yeah.
I mean, they can be that close to each other
Mhm.
and not, it's like,
Yeah. Some people are fine with it.
yeah, but we're not meant to be like that. I think God wants us to interact. I really do, to shepherd each other in several ways. That's always been my,
So that kind of leads to the next question. How might God want us, who have heard the word, to do as a result of our ongoing transformation as we think about all those different needs?
Can't imagine going up to a McMansion and banging on their door and saying, I want to talk to you today.
Let's be friends. Yeah.
you know Jesus?
Yeah.
Oh, my, look at the time.
Are you Catholic?
Yeah. Oh, boy. That's the hardest thing. We're supposed to spread the message. We are, but
Yeah.
approaching, people and doing that is the toughest thing sometimes.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Maybe just act like a child of God and treat everybody else like one too, and maybe don't really have to evangelize per se, but your actions speak
Yeah.
for God.
I try to fuse Christianity in different, maybe when I do the piano thing at the senior centers and things like that, Try to just remind people, say thank God, all kinds of things like it's trying. I from what I've heard on the Christian, if you can plant the seed, sometimes it's not about bludgeoning people like the whole Jesus movement back, on the day
Yeah.
we had the
Yeah.
Jesus freak show.
Or else.
Yeah, you're a non-believer. Get him. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's not going to work for you.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
You plant the seeds of
Love. Of
Yeah.
God.
yeah.
Here, have a rose, have a flower.
Yeah. And I remember I was not turned off by because I've always believed in God, but I remember thinking, wow, it's just overbearing. So, people come along, do you believe in Jesus? I sure do. I know all about him. Yeah.
Yep.
Um,
All right. Well, it must be craft time.
okay. What we growing today?
Well, we're still doing the same as we had. So today we got to do some marker. No.
Still think they're real crayons. We'd be better off with that.
Come on.
Oh, good, you have more.
I do.
You have to join.
Really?
Oh, phew, don't have to do that. There you go.
What are we drawing this time?
John's house.
John's house.
Well, it doesn't have to be the house. John's Christmas.
John's.
So, you can include the house, you can
Okay.
include the text, you can include, whatever you want.
I'm thinking blinding light.
All right, so. Uh, All right, well, let's close with prayer, shall we? Though no one has ever seen you, O God, we respond with wonder and awe to the good news that your Son, who is close to your heart, has made you known to us. As we draw near to the time when we celebrate the coming of your Son into the world, make us ever more aware that the Word has been made flesh and dwells among us. Amen.
Amen. Actually, and I think about it, when Jesus said, as you have seen me, you have seen the Father,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
and then who was it that saw the backside of God? Was that Moses?
Moses.
Moses, of course,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we sort of gotten a few glimpses.
Yeah.
They never drew anything, you know. So.
Well, thank you all for being part of this study.
Thank you for
And
hosting
I
us,
hope it's
David.
been useful. I've enjoyed
Yes,
it.
very much
And
so. I always learn something from these things that we do. And there's always
Yeah.
something new that comes along, and that's what it's all about.
yeah,
Deepening your understanding and
That's it.
picking up a few new things that, you know, and giving you pause for thought and going, I never looked at it that way. You know, that's
well,
what we do.
good.
And that's a good thing.
If we've done that, then we have fulfilled our purpose
Yeah,
here
good.
tonight.
Good, good, good.